Here are some books you should read if you're interested in political violence in the United States. So, I recently hit 1,000 followers on TikTok. Thank you for that. I've gotten a lot of comments asking me what sort of readings or books I'd recommend if you're interested in the topics that I cover here. So, let's get into it. So, my first recommendation is Days of Rage by Brian Burrow. If you're interested in the paramilitary left in the United States from the 1960s to the 1980s, this book is a great place to start. It chronicles the histories of groups like the Weather Underground Organization, the Black Liberation Army, the Symbionese Liberation Army, and the FALN. While it is a history book, it's sort of written in a narrative fashion, so if nonfiction isn't your thing, I'd still recommend picking this up because it reads like a novel. However, that narrative style doesn't necessarily discount all of the interesting information and the research that went into the book, so I definitely recommend picking it up. For my next recommendation, Lone Wolf by Marianne Vollers. So, this book chronicles the story of Eric Rudolph, who was responsible for a number of bombings during the mid 1990s, including the attack on the Atlanta Olympics in 1996. So, this is probably the best book about Eric Rudolph that exists, and it covers basically everything there is about his story, including his upbringing, his ideological motivations, the attacks themselves, and the manhunt that eventually led to his capture. And one thing I like about this book is its sort of neutral approach to the topic. It doesn't take sides between police or Rudolph, it just tells the story and it gives you all of the details in a way that's consumable and enjoyable to read. So I definitely recommend. And for my final book recommendation, Tonight We Bombed the US Capitol by William Rosenau. This book chronicles the history of the remnants of the Weather Underground organization that would go on to form the Revolutionary Armed Task Force and the Armed Resistance Unit that would bomb the US Capitol in 1983, hence the book title. This book is written from a security studies point of view, so it talks a lot more about the actual operations of the group, less so than trying to establish a narrative with characters. However, it does still read like a novel, and it's pretty well written. The only drawback of this book is the fact that William Rosenau worked for the RAND Corporation, meaning that none of the left-wing militants involved in the story wanted to actually speak with him. So it lacks the depth that interviews with these people would provide. However, I still think it's a good book. It tells the story pretty well. So those are my picks. However, I have way more books on the topic of political violence in the United States, so if you're interested in seeing a part 2, leave a comment. And thanks again for 1,000 followers on TikTok. I really appreciate the support my videos have been getting. And, as always, follow for more stories of America's underground.